It is not Democratic People's Republic of Puerto Rico. It's dividend payout ratio. It's cash dividends divided by net income. What portion of your net income you are paying as dividends? Okay. Let's get these dividend numbers for Walmart and Kroger. And you're going to find dividends in the statement of cash flows. Okay. So cash flow, let's do quarterly. So we're going to look at the trailing 12 months. You'll find it under financing cash flow. Hmm. Oh, there you go. It has a negative number because you paid it out. So $861 million dollars, because these are in thousands again. So, or $0.861 billion dollars. I was hoping, oh, that's just Kroger. I'm sorry. That sounded a little bit light. And for Walmart, yeah, I love you too. Uh, 6.538 billion. Let's remember the net incomes. 1968, 275. And you make these calculations, keep the units consistent. So Democratic People's Republic is going to be for Walmart 6.538 divided by, that's 0.332. And for, come on, Kroger. They're not so different from each other. Hence, so-called B is going to be, that's 1 minus that. Well, I'm still young enough to do that in my head. All right, you can check that. We're old school people. We didn't have calculators. In fact, I wasn't allowed to use calculator in any test until sophomore year in college. I mean, I took a math stat class test without calculator. And let's remember the ROAs, 748, 544. And that's uh, 499. I'm rounding things up. Normally, I would make these calculations in Excel, but that would be too much switching. 5.25%. And for Kroger, 94.27. Again, you can check my arithmetic. Don't ever call that math. This is just arithmetic. You're doing four basic operations. Now, here's the interpretation of internal rate of growth. That is the maximum growth you can achieve provided your dividend payout ratio and return on assets is going to stay at these levels. Obviously, if they change in the future, that's a different scenario. Without using any external resources of any kind. So you're not going to borrow more, you're not going to issue more equity. This is a hypothetical growth rate. If I don't get any more resources into the company to finance my assets, what is the maximum growth rate at which I can grow my earnings? That's the internal growth rate. So in this case, internal growth rate for Walmart is much higher. Of course, if in the future ROA increases, that's going to increase as well. Uh, Here's a hypothetical scenario. A company decides that they're going to distribute all of their income as dividends every year. So I made $100 million this year. My shareholders are going to get $100 million. What do you think the internal rate of growth will be? You don't even need any math or arithmetic to do this. Remember, internal rate of growth is you are only using resources that you generated internally. If you distribute everything, you get nothing left. All right? That's it. That means your internal rate of growth is zero. Given your ROA, if you want to maximize your internal rate of growth, you want to pay as little dividends as possible. Why? Because as you pay more dividends, you as you pay less dividends, you're keeping more internally. You're retaining more. Now we have another growth rate. It is called sustainable growth rate. Come on, man, work with me. It's been a while I use this. It's called SGR. It's ROE times A divided by. Now, the definition of this is the following. It is the maximum rate of growth that you can achieve by using internal and external resources, but without issuing more new equity and keeping the debt equity ratio constant. So I made $100 million this year, right? And I paid out 20 as dividends. So that leaves $80 million as what you want to call additional equity. That increases my equity because that's retained earnings. For the sustainable growth calculations, you're not going to issue any more new equity. We're not going to sell more stock, but you're going to borrow enough to keep our debt equity ratio constant. So let's say originally our equity was $1 billion. Okay, and our debt equity ratio was 2. That means I owed $500 million. Now I added $80 million, right, to my equity. To keep the debt equity ratio constant, I have to. My equity is now 580. My debt has to be 2 times that, which is 160. So I'm going to borrow an additional $160 million. Basically, I'm going to borrow that equity ratio times whatever money I added to my retained earnings. That keeps the debt equity ratio constant. I haven't issued any new stock. Given that, how fast I can grow, that's sustainable growth rate. So it's a growth rate that you can sustain without asking your shareholders to give you more money. You're still keeping the debt equity ratio same. So whatever financial fragility risk you get from being too leveraged, debt equity ratio of 10, if you're making money, that's a good thing. You're going to make a lot of money. But when you're losing money, that's going to kill you 10 times faster. Sometimes debt equity ratio is considered kind of a coefficient of financial fragility, especially above a certain number. Above a certain number, markets actually kind of attach a discount to firms like that. They have too much debt. For example, if you look at, in fact, which is something we're going to do on Wednesday, we're going to look at valuation multiples for Southwest Airlines and Delta Airlines. Delta Airlines is horrendously leveraged. It is common among airlines anyway, but Southwest is not.